to Widowed Too Soon. What's my name?
What's my name?
I'm just going with it. Welcome to Widowed Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader Ebersole. I'm sitting here with my friend and co-host, Mark Massaro. How's it going, Mark?
Yes. My name is actually Widowed Too Soon.
Oh,
We're
that's
here
your
with
name?
another episode of Mark Massaro.
Right. And
So-
Emmys, 5-time Emmy Award.
5-time, and I made a mistake. They were
you look
Golden
it up?
Globes.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, I still don't
Okay.
know what I'm talking about. Week
Yeah.
to week, I just like to keep people on their toes.
Mm-hmm, for real.
Rob was
So-
offended by my iPhone comment.
I know. I saw his comment today and like, Mark is a liar. And then someone else, I think they're like, what did he do? Or something. And then she was like, I'm going to have to listen so I can be in the know. And like,
Yep, that
yes,
was
you
awesome.
do.
So it was funny because Rob messaged me, sent me a real nice message, real supportive of Tina and I, and it was just real nice. And he said, I'm only about halfway through the episode. And then at the end of the message, or in another message, he took some shot at me about being an iPhone user just as a joke. And I said, haha, just wait till you hear the end of the episode.
Oh, so he
So
was,
it was
he
great.
was waiting for that. End of the
Yeah.
episode. Anyways,
Yep.
what have you been up to since we last recorded?
Well, since we recorded 2 days ago, no, I did my
You did have-
taxes.
Oh, good.
I did
haven't
my
gotten those
taxes.
yet.
Yep.
Good. Anything else?
Pleasantly surprised. It's one of those years. Nope, that's it. It took me that long.
Oh, wow. Okay, wait. You had strep throat in your family and something else.
Stomach bug.
Yes. How are the kids?
Yeah, they're doing great. Yeah.
Good. Good.
So Luke was partially so it was real. He had a fever
Yeah.
and got sent home from school and all that stuff, but he started telling me that every time he ate something, his tummy hurt. And he's
Oh.
like, I can't eat, like my tummy hurts. And I started getting like really worried, you know how we do. And I was like, really? Like anytime you eat anything, it hurts? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, what about those strawberries you ate earlier? He's all, it hurt. And I was like, dude, we need to go to the doctor. I'm like, they're going to need to like test your blood. And, I was kind of poking and prodding him a little bit. Like, are you sure? And he just started crying and I felt bad, but I was like, hey, I'm going to give you an opportunity. You can tell me the truth. Does your tummy really hurt every time you eat something? Because that's very scary for me. And he's like, no, it doesn't. So he was like doing it to like get out of stuff. I'm like, I asked you to clean up your room. He's like, my tummy hurts. I'm like, I see what you're doing here. So anyways, we're doing all well over here.
Good.
Well, Michelle.
Oh, well, I know. I caught that. It was all good. It's all well.
How are you doing?
I am well. See, I passed the grammar test that time.
Good job.
Let's see. I have just a couple
It's grammar
of things.
time.
Oh, that was a good one. Grammar time.
Stop. Grammar
Do you have
time.
Do you have your grammar pants?
Yes, they have commas, quotations, and question
No,
marks all
for
over them.
real. Okay, so Joel and I were on a walk.
That'd be
and we saw
punctuation,
this,
but yeah.
this guy with like for real hammer pants. Like they're coming back a little bit. Like all the 90s stuff are coming back around. Like the big old bell bottom pants.
Nice.
Like, everything is back. Fanny packs. Okay, we took the kids to a concert. Like two of Haley's friends were wearing fanny packs. It's like
Really?
a thing. Yes. They were like, yeah, everybody wears them. I'm like, you guys are so 90s. Like,
Do you remember hyper shirts?
oh, hypercolor shirts.
Hypercolor
And your
shirts,
armpits
yeah.
would be all like different colors. Like,
I
it
just
was
remember
cool.
I didn't sweat back then yet. I remember I was like, I was
You
a
never
late sweater.
sweat?
I don't know. Maybe I was just severely dehydrated. I don't know. I didn't start sweating until I was much older in life, but I just remember blowing on the sleeve and it would like
and then
change
watching
color,
color. Yeah.
Probably
But I
stank,
remember mostly like it was like 7th or 8th grade and all the boys with the different colored armpits because they were wearing the hypers. I don't know. Hope that doesn't come back.
Yeah, that didn't last. That's probably why that didn't last very long.
Yeah, like on Sunday, my sister-in-law and I were like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like her daughter who's 17, I'm like, she's just like us in high school. She was wearing like big green pants. Like I had them in every color, jeans. Like she had like green or red. I can't remember what color she had. And then like a black shirt. She just looked just like we did in high school. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's rad.
But
Did
anyway,
she have
okay.
the top ponytail?
No, I don't
No?
think that one's making its comeback. Okay, so anyways, the things that
Anyways.
we did. So, oh, that's part of it. We went to Toby Mac concert, which was really
Oh,
cool.
nice.
It was like if you want to chaperone, it's free. So Joel always talks about when you go to a concert. But like old people, we had our earplugs in. But mine was mostly because I don't want to mess up my ears anymore. I don't want the ringing to get worse. And then
That
all
makes
we had
sense.
for him, like I'd ordered some. We had these like bright orange swim ones you're supposed to wear in the pool, and so he's got his bright orange, and we're like yelling to each other. I'm like, we are so old.
That's
It was
rad.
fun, but I also realized I don't really love going to concerts anymore. But it was cool. It was a great concert. Like I knew a lot of the songs. My favorite part is when they like broke out into like DC talk. Now, did you like? I don't think in the '90s you were listening to Christian rap so much.
No, I know
No,
ZZ Top.
no, DC talk, decent Christian rap. That's what DC talk.
Oh, okay. No, I listened
Anyway.
to, I think it was called Holy Rollers. They were a Christian rap band.
Oh, I don't know that one.
They
But
had some
anyways.
good music. Yeah.
When they like started breaking out into these old songs, Haley turned around. She's like, "Is this what you're talking about?" I'm like, "Yeah, they were DC talk." And me and like the other mom were like, "Yeah." But anyway, that's what
No,
I
that was
go-
when I used to listen to gangster rap.
Oh yeah, Gangster's Paradise. As
Yeah,
I walk
you know.
through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life in real life. Remember? Come on.
I do. I like Weird Al's version.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Amish
what's that one
Paradise?
called? Yes,
It's great.
My kids know that one. Funny. Anyways, so random. Let me get to
Even
the point.
Ezekiel thinks that my mind is going.
That is a funny one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
I wonder, you know what I wonder? If people like hit the fast forward. You know, you can do 30 seconds on a time on a podcast. Ding, 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 until we're done talking. But you know what? It's their choice. It's their prerogative. So
They
I
do
wonder
what
if
they
you-
want to do.
I knew that was coming. It's my prerogative. Okay, so this is really fun. Let me tell you the fun thing.
Yes.
Joel got to be a
Fun
model
thing.
yesterday. It
He got to
was
what?
So be a model. It was
What?
so
No way.
fun. You gotta check out the pictures they posted. He's all like GQ in front of the plane. So his work needed him to come in. They're doing new website pictures. So I went with him, and it was so
That's super
fun.
cool.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And then side note, this probably won't mean much to you, but it'll mean much to my guests who haven't heard yet. So there's this woman. She looks super familiar. And we're sitting in the plane, and she comes up, and Joel had told me that Danny, our friend, has a neighbor who used to be on The Bachelor, and I was like, I don't know. Then I go introduce. She says her name, and I'm like, you look really familiar, and her name is Desiree. I go look it up, and that's her 2013 Bachelorette. Her and Chris were there, her husband. So this is like a big deal if you know the Bachelor.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was really cool. I snuck a little picture. I didn't want to be fangirl, so like I'll do this, and I sent it to a couple people. I should have sent it to Maria, and I was like, "Do you know who this is?" And my sister-in-law guessed it. She figured it out. So
Wow.
that was like really cool. But it was like I knew her. Probably how people feel when they talk to us, for the first time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when
But I
we
was
just
like,
started walking down the street,
wow, it was
paparazzi's
just
following
kind of
us.
this weird. It was a weird day. I was at a photo shoot, so her and her husband were like the main models for the photo shoot, and then they had
Wow.
all the pilots. Yeah, so it was a cool day, just like
That's really neat.
a whole different experience. And Joel and I got to hang out, and then some of the people asked us to go to dinner afterwards. And my kids are visiting their grandma near Seattle, and so we didn't have to hurry home for any kids, and it was really fun. And that's a whole other cool thing that like Haley's old enough now to drive themselves, and so they're visiting Luke's parents, and good times. But I'm just talking about
That's
random
cool.
stuff. Let's get to the
That's
episode.
what we
Do you have
do.
anything?
That's what every episode is in the beginning.
I know, but listen, Rob, 8 minutes 37 seconds. Boom.
That's a record.
That's a record. That's not 25 minutes, because if we record more often, then we don't have as much to talk about.
Michelle, it's not 8 minutes and 37 seconds anymore.
Almost 9 minutes. Anyways, do I have anything else? That's good for now. So I'm super excited. Can we get into the episode, or
We
do you
can,
have,
yeah.
Did you climb a mountain or win a race or something you want to talk about?
Not this week. I only
Okay.
went down to the Mariana Trench, but no big deal.
What's that?
Deepest part of the ocean.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know what that was. The
I
Mariana
know.
Trench.
Yeah, it's like 7
Oh,
miles deep.
I've never heard that my entire life. And
Look it up. It's really interesting.
Okay. All right. So, anyways, my guest has been like trying not to talk and laugh and all this, but now we're gonna introduce her, and then we can talk about the Bachelorette thing. So, anyways, I'm so excited to introduce you guys to my friend Maria Swinger-Inskeep. Did I say it correctly?
You did.
Yes. And I'm gonna let Maria tell you in just a minute. But we met. I'll let her tell you in a minute. But hold on. What do you think of it? Did you remember Desiree
Yes, I watched from early on. So I was
Let me
a
show you her picture.
Trista fan.
Oh, yes.
From
Trista and
the
Ryan.
beginning.
Yes.
And then most recently got into the Golden Bachelor.
That was the best.
Oh my gosh, I
If
loved
you're
it.
widowed, watch it.
What's
Yeah,
the
I
Golden
love-
Bachelor?
Oh my
talked about
gosh,
it.
Mark.
Is
You
it
gotta
like
get
older
caught up.
people?
Yes.
Yes.
And they were
Okay,
widowed. The
okay.
two that they got together, they were both widowed. It was so cute.
And
Oh, that's
now
cool.
the Golden Bachelorette is coming out, and so I have not heard who the Bachelorette is, but I'm super excited to hear. So we even had a viewing
Well,
party
keep us
and
posted.
everything like that. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I remember her.
And then her husband.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
She did not meet him on the show.
Oh, she didn't.
I don't know. I don't know that that's her show spouse, but now I'm gonna have to look it up and see.
Yeah, but I think they were talking about it yesterday that
Oh,
they're
were
one
they?
of the ones that have lasted.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look her up.
Yeah,
again,
we'll get
so,
the whole story.
yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah,
let's get
I
into
remember her.
our story.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us, you can start with how we met.
Okay, so the way that I met Michelle is last fall I was I had got invited to a local charity event, a dinner, and so I went to the dinner, and the gist of it is that they draw 3 names out of organizations, nonprofits, and somebody from each of those organizations gets to get up and present their spiel, and then afterwards we vote on the winner, and they get a minimum of $10,000 from our group. And so Michelle, I think it was your first time
meeting, yeah.
attending that event? And it was my first time attending that event. And so Widow Goals was the name was drawn, and so she got to get up and give a spiel. And I remember looking when she announced what her group was. I looked at my girlfriend who had invited me, and I think that both of our jaws kind of dropped open. And unbeknownst to me, my girlfriend who invited me was also a widow, and I didn't know that. Her husband had passed 30 years ago. And and she's now remarried. And so afterwards, of course, we voted and Widow Goals won. And afterwards I said, I've got to meet that lady. And so I went over and I introduced myself to Michelle, and the rest is history. And so just a super cool connection of, we don't live in a very big community, and the widow community is even a smaller community. And so the fact that we're right here in the same town and both widows, and we didn't know each other before that, but I thought that was just super cool. Destiny had brought us together. And so just a really, really cool interaction. And it's been great just developing our friendship over the past few months. So,
That's awesome. Wow. I totally remember hearing all about that event.
Yeah.
Yes, it was really cool. I didn't realize it was your first time either.
It was, yes.
Okay, that's
yes.
so cool. Yes. And then we ran into each other. Well, I didn't, we were Facebook friends, but then, the whole thing, my Facebook shut down, so I lost touch with everybody. But we got connected again, and then at this thing where my daughter was singing, I was like, she looks familiar, and then figured out it was her, and then she's been part of our Widow Goals events. She even what's the word? Hosted. Thank you. Galentine's Bunko a couple days ago, which was really fun. We even had a Christmas tree decorated with Valentines. It was like a Valentine.
Oh, that's cool.
It was super cool. So anyways.
So cool story about my trees is, so I love Christmas, and having my tree up always brought me joy. And Andy, my late husband, I don't know if he would ever have wanted me to keep my tree up year round. And so when he died, I realized, wait, having my tree up brings me joy. And so growing up, my piano teacher changed out her tree for every season. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do that. So I did, and I did Valentine's, and then Easter, and St. Patrick's, and
that's cool.
4th of July, and fall, and then Christmas again. And so I did that for 2 entire years.
Oh, wow.
And then actually just a year ago, I realized, you know what? I found other things in my life to bring me joy. I don't need to leave my tree up 24/7, and so 365. And so just a year ago, I took my tree down. But I knew that I was going to be hosting this event, and so I thought, okay, I need to decorate it for Valentine's for these ladies. So I redecorated
cool.
it for Valentine's for y'all.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so why don't we start with, to get to know your story. Will you tell us how you and Andy met? Which I've never heard the story, so I'm very excited.
So I am from Indiana, and Andy also is from Indiana. And Andy, okay, so here's the funny thing is we actually disagree with how we met. So I will say that I met him at a softball game, and one of my girlfriends introduced the two of us. Obviously, I wasn't that memorable because he doesn't remember meeting me at the softball game, and he would say we met at church. And so I went to church with my girlfriend, and the first time he asked me out, I said no, but he was persistent, and so I said yes. And we started dating in the fall. I was 19 years old, so he's actually my one and only boyfriend ever. And shortly after we started dating, he showed up to my house with a box of leaves. And the fall in Indiana is just beautiful. And he gave them to me, and he said, "I'm falling for you just as these leaves fell from a tree." And so I'm like, how can you not fall in love with somebody that says that?
Love it.
That's
And
great.
so then the rest was history. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Wow.
And then can you tell us about like kind of where your life
Yes,
was there, when you got
absolutely.
married, and what your life was like? with
Yeah,
him?
so we were married about 2.5 years after we started dating. I had just turned 22, and he was a youth pastor, as I mentioned, and so ministry really took us all over the United States. So we started out in northern Indiana, we went to Virginia Beach, and then we came back to southern Indiana, and then to Kansas, and then to eastern Washington, and then now western Washington, where I reside today. And so really just following ministry the entire time. And, the interesting thing is, and I'm sure I'll talk here shortly about how Andy passed, but when he died, I decided that I wanted to stay put in here in Ridgefield. And I don't have any friends. I'm sorry, I have friends. I don't have any family, or I don't have any children. And so I decided, you know what, this is my community. And I realized that all throughout our travels and our journeys is that it was never God just calling Andy to a location. It was always God calling both of us. And so that's why, some people were surprised that I didn't go back home to Indiana or go to Kansas, places where I really, really have great friendships and loved. But I realized, no, this is my community, and these are people who I love, and I chose to be here just as much as Andy did, and they're invested in me, and I'm invested in them, and so I really just have planted my roots, and this is home.
Oh, that's great.
That's
can
awesome.
You tell us about like what you and Andy did here.
Yes. So Andy was a youth pastor at Ridgefield Church in the Nazarene, and we had only lived here for 9 months before he died. And so prior to that, we had lived 4 years in eastern Washington, just about 40 miles from the Canadian border. It was really far up there in Colville. And then we moved here. He was a lead pastor in eastern Washington, but really had felt called back to youth ministry. Youth is something, he was such a great youth pastor. And I knew that God would ultimately call him back to youth ministry. And so he was a youth pastor here, and we had lived here for 9 months. And now that has been about 3.5 years ago. So I have lived here for November will be 5 years that I have lived here in Ridgefield.
Wow. So when did he pass away?
Yes, Andy passed in August of 2020.
I thought so. That's when my wife died also. I thought I remembered Michelle saying that. Lacey was August 13th.
Okay, Andy was August 6th, so one week prior.
Wow,
Exactly.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So can you tell us about his death?
I can, yeah. So as I said, Andy was a youth pastor, and he was on a youth trip to Hood River, and there were with middle school teens, and there were 14 teens that were on that trip, and I call it just the perfect storm because there were a majority of those teens walked out onto a sandbar that day, and it was just the perfect storm of the weight of the youth on the sandbar and the water that had been let out from the dam earlier in the day that was rushing under it when the sandbar started to give way, and the teens were swept into the water. And then Andy and another adult who were back on shore rushed out to try and save the teens, and all of the teens were able to make it back in except for two. One teen named Brandon, who the other adult, his name was Sean, was going after, and then one teen named Devin, who Andy was going after. And Sean had made it to Brandon and he was able to get him, but he quickly felt him losing life, and Sean was struggling to get Brandon back out of the water, and he was even like jolting his body up into the air, trying to jolt life back into him, and he quickly felt his body go limp, and he knew that Brandon was gone. And so then the teens that had made it back to the shore, they were able to wave down a windsurfer, and that windsurfer, they drew his attention to Andy. And when the windsurfer, his name was Talon, got to Andy, Andy said, "No, don't save me, save him," which was the other teen who was in the water. And we just know that Andy had the wherewithal to know, like, if this guy puts down his sail, he can save me, but he can't save him. And so that's what Talon did, was he went on to save Devin, but he was not able to save Andy as well.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So tragic.
It's so tragic, and yet at the same time, it's like, what a beautiful legacy to leave behind. Dying a hero, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it doesn't make it any easier for you, but...
I do. So, we have the scripture, John 15:13, which is, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friend. And that's definitely what Andy did on that day. So, but what I've tried to just focus on is finding joy in this time. And I know that in that moment that Andy chose joy, and he chose the joy of, he's living life in eternity with his Heavenly Father, so that helps to give me peace and helps me to find joy at the same time.
So tell us about, how did you find out, and what were those emotions, and walk us through that.
So interesting is I have a girlfriend who I'm super close to, and she is on the east side of the state. And a few months prior, she had said, "Hey, Maria, I'm going to be in your area on this day. I'm going to have an Airbnb. Put it on your calendar, and you can come stay with me." And I said, okay. And so, and it's just, God knows our day. God knows our story. And so, and my faith is so strong. And so that is, what has helped me get through this journey. So I was actually with my girlfriend on that day, staying at an Airbnb about an hour north of here. And I got the call on about maybe 6 p.m. And so the call was that he had gone missing. And so Andy actually wasn't found until 24 hours later. And so I had a day of just not knowing, but I really knew immediately. And so if you ask my girlfriend, like, how is Maria when she found out, she would tell you I was at peace. Like, I was actually more shocked about finding out about Brandon's passing than I was about Andy's passing, because I just knew, And so from that moment, I have just always been at peace. And I think it just goes back to my faith. And I don't see how people do this without having that faith.
No kidding.
And
We say that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it like in the community, in your church? Because they lost their youth pastor and one of the students. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, it was difficult, but we just have an amazing youth group, and we have an amazing support system, and our church was really proactive in immediately bringing in chaplains and immediately surrounding all of us with the support and the love that we needed, and, helping to get counseling when needed. And, I've been in counseling for probably about 2 years, and that has been really, really helpful to me. And so the community just rallied around one another. And we've had a couple of teens who have moved away, but interestingly enough, we have not lost any of our adult volunteers who were there. They're all still very active in our youth group, and we've not lost any of those students. So there's a couple of students that were on the trip who are now seniors, and then some juniors and sophomores. And so I've watched those students go through middle school, and now they're in high school. And I think that it's really helped them in their grief process by seeing me in my grief process, and having me around, and letting them see that I am okay and I'm getting through this. And I think that that's probably helped them as well. So, and like I've said, we've been in 6 other churches across the United States. And so that has been part of my process has been going back to those locations and seeing those teens, seeing those church members, because I say I can post as much as I want to on Facebook that makes it look like I'm okay, but until you actually see me in person and you look into my eyes and you give me a hug, then you know that I am truly doing well. And so that has been important to me, to get back to all of those locations and to connect with those people.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's such an inspiring story, and it's so hard to like wrap my mind around that, but the thing that really stood out was you feeling peace, because that is something that a person of faith can only experience, and whether it happens right away, shortly after, or it takes much longer, it's just still something that is different. You can tell when a believer has, it's interesting, when I went down to make the arrangements for my wife's funeral, I was talking with the lady there, and she said, "You're a believer, aren't you?" And I said, "I am." And she's like, "This is what I do for a living, and I can always tell when somebody's a believer by the way they're handling the situation. It's the people that are the non-believers that are coming in here and screaming and, just can't handle it, basically, or they're in here fighting with each other. The family members are fighting and all this crazy stuff, but it was just like, wow. But it was just amazing to me that she just asked me, like, "You're a believer, aren't you?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, I am."
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No, you can tell the difference. Yeah.
You can, yeah. And same with a lot of my wife's hospice nurses. One in particular, Nurse Alice, she said, she'd call me Mr. Mark. I think she was from, it wasn't Nigeria, but that's always what I want to say. Maybe it was, I don't know. I don't remember where she was from, but she had this, like, it almost sounded, just because I don't know the distinction, it almost sounded kind of like a Jamaican accent. But she'd always say, "Mr. Mark," But she told me that one of the most amazing things about being a hospice nurse is that you could really tell the difference when somebody was a believer when they were dying, because more often than not, they were ready to go home. They were at peace. They'd usually go peacefully. It was very rarely like, she said, people that aren't believers, I see the like torment as they're dying. And I'm not talking about pain. I'm talking about the reality of I'm dying. And always for believers, she said it was just like such a different experience to go be by their side. So anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to get so segued on that, but
yeah. So I want to ask you, so I know you're at peace, but in incredible pain. Like, walk us through, like, you're probably in shock at first, but you're at peace. But what are those first, like, few days, weeks, months as a widow like?
Yeah. I think that one of the best things that could have happened for me is that my church sent in 2 grief chaplains to meet with me the day after Andy had died. And one of them, they were sisters, and then one of them actually had been widowed twice. So she knew what I was going through. And they gave me the best piece of advice. And they said, in advance of any special holidays, birthdays, anniversary celebrations, make sure to have planned in advance what you're doing and who you're doing it with.
Yes.
And so I really took that to heart. They said, you don't want to find yourself sitting at home wishing you had planned something and then not having something planned. And so that is one of the pieces of advice that I give to all new widows, is have that planned in advance. And, if Valentine's Day was a big day that you celebrated together, then plan something. If it's not, then it would be fine if you're sitting at home, then that's fine. And so I have tried to check in on the widows that I'm kind of mentoring. And, we just had Valentine's Day. And so I've in advance said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Or I saw somebody who was a widow post that Super Bowl Sunday may be hard, because if that is a big game meant a lot to your spouse, and then you always watched it together, you may have found yourself sitting at home, And so I thought, oh yeah, that's another one that could be triggering. And so I've really taken that to heart. And so I thought to myself, what was the first big thing that Andy and I had coming up? And it was we celebrated our dating anniversary, and it was going to be our 20-year dating anniversary. was just about a month and a half after he died. And so I thought to myself, okay, I'll ask a friend to do something. And so I asked a friend. I thought, oh, we'll go to dinner, because that's probably what Andy and I would have done. And so I said, hey, do you want to do something on this day? And she said, I would love to, but we can't just like go to dinner. We have to do something big. And so I saw she was reading my mind. And so I thought, well, what's bigger than going to dinner? And so I remembered that Andy and I had never done my dream date, which was a hot air balloon ride. And so I love surprises. And so I told her, I'll pick you up at 5 a.m. and this is what you need to wear. And so I picked her up and then took her and we did a hot air balloon ride. And so I've done that on multiple occasions, like on our wedding anniversary as well. I've taken some friends along with me to explore and to do that journey with me. So yeah.
That's cool. And so I have to ask, because you said 20 years about a month and a half later. So when did you guys start dating?
We started dating when I was 19, just before my 20th birthday. So I was a widow at 39 years old.
Wow. So what was the date and year?
Oh, so we started dating October 22nd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what?
Okay.
Why I think this
Lacey, I was just like, as you said that, I'm like, our anniversary was like a month and a half. Well, ours was like a month later, but September 17th, 2003.
Okay.
So
2003 was the year we got married.
okay.
So.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get married till 2008. Oh, yeah. Okay. Gosh, it's crazy. Like, it's like, I feel like 2020 is like, I don't know. It's like I always subtract from 2020. I forget that it's like 2020. I don't know. And we talked about the same kind of thing with the year 2000. Like, it still feels like 1990 was like 10 years ago.
Right?
I don't know. Anyways.
We're so old.
I got distracted by that. I'm sorry. I'm like, that'd be so crazy.
Yeah. No. Wow. So you had that good advice for the widows. What do you think is the most challenging thing about being widowed?
I think the challenging thing comes just realizing that your person is no longer there. So I was telling you the other night, I was changing the light bulbs out on my back deck, and I was standing on the hot tub, and I fell off of the hot tub and changing the light bulb. And I thought to myself, like, this is supposed to be Andy doing this. It's not supposed to be me. And then I realized, wait, I was the person who always changed the light bulbs in the relationship. So I would have fallen off even if he was there. But, recently, so I have a cold, and I, had to wake up in the middle of the night, and I had to go search for cough syrup. And before, Andy would always be the person that would come and give me my cough syrup in the middle of the night. And realizing that he is no longer there, and I'm having to do this on my own, is just that realization. So that's probably the hardest thing, is not having a person.
Yeah. Because we've talked about that before on here, and maybe as a listener you've heard us say it before, but it's just crazy how much everything is just gone. Like, and I always use the example of like all the inside jokes. I just mentioned that in the last episode. All the plans, all the little quips and the things you've learned from, because when you've been around somebody a long time, you kind of just talk like each other. You say the same things or whatever. And so it's just interesting because all that stuff is gone. And so there is this part of you, even though our identity is in Christ, there is this part of you that just feels like you lost a massive part of your identity. And nobody understands those inside jokes anymore. Those little, like Lacey and I, and everybody will relate to this, but Lacey and I had these titles for each other, Hoy and Woy. So it was wife of the year, husband of the year. Oh. And so we would always like just put it somewhere, like magnetic, little magnetic letters on the fridge. Like I'd go spell them out real quick, WOY, and just kind of walk away and wait for her to find it. Or we had these little magnetic letters, and Lacey would put WOY. Or one time I put the Scrabble. We'd play Scrabble a lot, and I put Scrabble away, and I left that on there. So the next time we played Scrabble, she'd pull it out. But like, those things are gone. Nobody knows what that stuff is anymore. It's just, all these things become insignificant. Right. And it's just weird. It's just a very strange thing. But,
it's funny.
Wow.
So Andy and I, we liked playing this board game called Ticket to Ride. And
Oh, that's
so
a good one.
and so one day I was playing with somebody and we pulled out the directions and I saw Andy had written in there because we would always we would disagree over like a card laid is a card played, and like, oh, I would lay a card, oh wait, I want to pick that back up, and he had written in the directions, so in his handwriting it says a card laid is a card played. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that he had done that, but just to find those things,
Oh,
you know,
that's
Yeah.
so special.
When you find something written by them or something that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
I can't remember. There was something recently, and
Yeah.
I was like, "What? I've never seen that!" And it was exciting, like finding a treasure.
Yeah. It's so special. Like, so Andy was a pastor, and you know, as social media has become popular, you know, a lot of his sermons were online, and so sometimes in my Facebook memories, like his sermon will pop up, and I get to, you know, hop on and hear his voice and things like that. I guess as you asked about tips, one of the big tips that I would give that somebody had given me is, you know, if you have any voicemails or any recordings, to make sure to get those, you know, downloaded, because I have a voicemail of Andy singing me happy birthday.
Aww.
And so I'm able to go back and I have a recording of it now that I can like listen to that on my birthday, which is so super special. So yeah.
That's really cool.
Really awesome. So we're all very similar in 2020 when our spouses died. What was it like? Were you able to have a big celebration of life or funeral? Like, how did it work for you?
Yeah, good question.
It's challenging.
So it was, you know, interestingly is that in the midst of a COVID funeral, so we flew Andy back to Indiana, and there were people from 15 different states who showed up
Wow.
to love on me and to just show support for, you know, him who had such a profound impact on so many people's lives. And so that was really telling. You know, in ministry and in life, you don't always know the people that you have an impact on or how you have an impact on, especially in youth ministry, because the youth move on and they don't always come back to tell you. And so there were a lot of youth, and youth had flown in to to speak and to share. And so that was huge for me, and it showed me that, you know, my support system is not just here in Ridgefield, that it expands all across the United States. And so I was fortunate that I was able to have a decent sized funeral back in Indiana, and then we also had a celebration of life a couple of weeks later here in Ridgefield. So
that was definitely a challenging time. We were able to, because it was May of 2020, we had a graveside service. We can only have 10 people. Like my own brothers had to be in their cars watching on live stream.
Right.
But then a couple months later, down in the gorge, we were able to do a big service with like 250. But it was a very challenging time.
Yeah.
It was.
Plan all of that, and it was really difficult. So were there specific verses or songs that helped you through your hard time?
Yeah. So Andy's favorite book in the Bible was James, and so I really like the scripture James 1, 2, and 3, and it is, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And so, you know, I think I always am trying to put a positive spin on it. Like, I don't want to have a woe is me attitude, or to be the, to have sorrow, or, you know, you have that, but that's not what Andy would have wanted for me. He would have wanted me to just continue to find joy and to continue to live life and to continue to persevere. And so to find that scripture, and just a reminder that we're all going to face those trials and those tribulations, but I can find joy during this time. And so that's just really what I have focused on. As far as music, Andy was a big Dave Matthews fan, and so we went to several concerts, and so also the Lone Bellow is another group that we had that was probably one of our last date, was going to see them come and perform, and we'd seen them a couple times, and so a lot of times when I'm just at home doing housework and I have like Dave Matthews or the Lone Bellow is playing in the background, and so it just kind of makes me feel connected, or brings back those memories of concerts and things that we went to. So yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so I have another question I didn't prep you for.
That's okay.
You don't want to answer.
That's okay. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on dating again?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's encouraging to see your journey or to see, Mark's journey. And so I am open to whatever God wants and wherever God leads. And so it's not something that I have stepped into at this point. But if that is what God wants and that's where God leads, I'm definitely open to it. I do think that we were created for relationships and created to, to live life in community and with other people. And so I am open to it if that is where God leads. He just hasn't led in that direction yet. Yeah.
Well, that's good. You're letting God write your love story.
Absolutely.
That's what we always say. Let God write it. Because, crazy, Joel and I reconnecting over Facebook. We went to college together. Tina was a listener. Here we are. So it's like God's very creative in how he does things. So I think it's going to be exciting to watch how God does that. And I love that you're open to that. And it's okay if you're not. Actually, my mom and I were just having this conversation today. A couple of people in our family who are widowed who have never remarried. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, it's whatever that person wants. There's no right or wrong way to do that. So that's good. Mark, do you have some questions?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely up to each individual because I know myself. I'm built to, be in a relationship. That's just makes me the best version of myself. And so, but yeah, you're right, Michelle. There's some people that are just like, I can't do it. I can't. And I understand that too, because like it is the thought of like starting over, way back, in 2020, the thought of like starting over was so overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
And at that time also, I had this outlook that like, I was like, nobody can compare. Lacey set the bar way too high. Like those kind of women just are not. I'm not saying anything bad about women, but I'm just saying that how I felt at that time. It was like there are just not a lot of women, and I still feel this way. There are not a lot of women of that caliber. But that's just I'm completely partial to who Lacey was, and biased. But that was a really overwhelming thing for me in the beginning. Was who is ever going to love me like that again? Who's ever going to love these kids like they're their own? You know what I mean? Because I really wanted that. But it's super random thing on the side here. But Alexis was telling me today that she's told some friends at school that Tina is her mom. I forgot to tell Tina this. Like not that she's like, mom, but she's referenced her as she's like my mom.
That's so
And
sweet.
I totally forgot to tell Tina that earlier. And yeah, I thought that was super sweet. And she's like, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I mean, let me make sure it's okay with Tina, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but I know it would be okay with Tina. But just saying I can't speak for her, but I thought that was super sweet and just speaks volumes to what these kids are missing in their lives,
That's precious. That is really sweet.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to say to you, Mark, I love how you've always, like, I know Alexis is very open about she's lost her mom and all this stuff. You've fostered an environment for your kids where they feel so comfortable talking about their mom and doing all of that. And that's not always the case. As I've gotten to know more and more widows, like they have a hard time in their home talking about their, the mom or the dad that had died. And it's hard for the kids to do that. And so I think it's really important. And I've done the same thing with my kids to be able to we talk about Luke with Joel and he's good with it. And like, I know Tina's the same way with you guys talking about Lacey. In fact, I was actually having this conversation with a widow yesterday who was thinking about dating again. And I'm like, if it's the right person, not only will they not they will want to hear about them, they will ask about them, because it's part of you. It makes you who you are. So you want someone. She's like, well, is it okay to talk? I'm like, yeah, talk about him.
Yeah.
They should be asking. If they're not, you don't want that person.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Not threatened at all, and who can I want to know because this makes you who you are. I want to know about your late spouse. Tell me about them. And the wrong person will be totally threatened by that. But the right person, don't settle.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So
I want to
Maria,
add on to that really
oh yeah,
quickly.
go ahead.
Okay, so Andy and I were big NCIS fans, so NCIS, NCISLA, and this week I was watching an episode and they said something really profound on it. And they said that we all die twice. And the first, when our body gives way, and then the second is when our story stops being told. And so I really, really liked that. And I
Yeah.
thought, you know what, that is what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
I am keeping Andy's legacy alive by sharing
Yeah.
his story. I was telling Michelle recently, I created a scholarship in his memory.
Oh, wow.
And so to be able, two of the things that were most important to Andy and I were youth and education. And so to be able to bring those two things together and to be able to give out money to the different communities that we have lived in across the United States is just really, really been important. But I thought that was really profound.
It is.
I think it is our duty as our spouses are no longer here, but to continue to keep telling their story.
That's so
Absolutely. I love that. That's awesome. That's
Thank
really
you,
neat.
NCIS.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Go NCIS. But it also is a testimony of, so back to what you were saying, Michelle, a little bit, that like, so for me, like, I love hearing Tina talk about John. And obviously there's, no insecurities there, or jealousies or anything like that at all. Because my heart truly wishes for her that she still had him. That being said, I love hearing her talk about him, because that tells me so much about the woman that she is and how she
Right.
loved him, that she still wants to talk about him, that she still loves him, that she's still always, he's not forgotten. And it's the same with Lacey all the time. I'll always have really, really sweet things to say about Lacey. Anytime I think about anything, and I love that it doesn't feel like you're tiptoeing around the topic,
Right.
because she was part of my life for 20 years. So many of my stories involve her. You know what I mean? So there might be times where I'm like, oh, I remember this time. And I don't want to be like, oh, sorry, Lacey was there. Should I not talk about this story? Like, that was like half of my life. Like, I'm not, so if somebody was like that, that wouldn't work for me. But fortunately, Tina also is very understanding and wants to hear about Lacey and, all that good stuff. But Maria, I wanted to ask you, so I can tell obviously you're a woman of great faith. Did you have any struggles with your faith during that time? And I mean, any way in like that you were, angry or bitter towards God or resentful, screaming out, why? And, did you go through any of those struggles?
I don't think that I did, but I would have to say that my faith is stronger than it ever was when I was in a relationship with Andy. And I think part of that is because he was always the person who would ask me, what are you reading in the Bible? What are your devotions about?
That's awesome.
What are you studying? And I realized shortly after that he was no longer there to do that. And that I could no longer ride the coattails of his faith or the coattails of my in-laws'
Wow.
faith or the coattails of my pastor's faith, that I had to really make my faith my own.
Yeah.
And so that realization early on, I think, has helped me to not have that, that bitterness or that anger, because I was truly, digging in the word and making it Maria's faith, not Andy's
Wow.
faith, but my own faith.
That was like profound for me, because the first thing, it really grabbed my attention, because I've always aspired to be a man more like that, where I am just, and I'm just being honest, where it's just constantly like God is at the forefront of my thoughts. I do get really wrapped up in life, and it kind of often becomes like a secondary thought, and that's just, true confession. But I've always aspired to be, wanted to be, had ambitions to be the man that is waking up, eating, breathing, sleeping, the word, the Lord, prayer, like that's just always the answer to everything, where it's like, oh, I had a hard day at work. Well, let's pray about it. Or, oh, I'm really scared about this. Let's pray about it. I really admire men that are like that. And so when you said that you were riding the coattails of his faith, that was just like, whoa, that Lacey was very much, she was a lot of the drive in us getting to church every Sunday, and don't get me wrong, I've been going to church for years after Lacey died and stuff, but there are times where it just doesn't seem like as big of a deal to me if like, I'm kind of tired this morning, maybe I'll watch online, or maybe I'll catch up with it later in the week or whatever. There's been a lot more of that. Lacey was like, nope, we're going to church. We're going to church. We're going to church. And so that was just really profound to me when you said that, because like, I kind of had to do the same thing. I kind of had to like say, okay, like I'm getting my kids to church still. I'm still a churchgoer. Even without Lacey, I am my own Christian. I have my own relationship with Jesus. And while of course I knew all of that, just the way you said that, I was like, whoa, that's like pretty much the same thing I did, So that was really cool. I like the way you said that. But yeah, so wow, what a story. Gosh, it's amazing how many different stories there are out there. I heard one recently that just blew my mind, but it was from another source, so I need to get permission to share that story first. But I'm going to ask and see if I can share it on here. But yeah, we just hear all these incredible stories, and it's so eye-opening when it's kind of like when I was just talking about this the other day, when you never see Cadillacs on the road anymore, let's say, for example, and then all of a sudden you start looking, and then all of a sudden Cadillacs are everywhere. Yeah. And it's because your brain's thinking about them, right? But it's been the same thing with, like, widows. Like, I had never known any widow or widowers before. But now it's like, I feel like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is I came to our Christmas event, and Stacy said, oh, there's another widow that I think goes to your church. And I mean, we're a church of like 500. And I said, what? And she said her name, and I didn't even know. Her husband had died before Andy. She's my age. And the fact that in the same building that there was somebody that I didn't even know was a widow, and we have, that same journey. And so now we're connected. So thank you for, having this group and to making those connections.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
Something that I've seen from you that I think is really cool, I'd love for you to share with the listeners, is how like you didn't stop living life. In fact, you lived it so big. Tell us about like your travels. Like there's so many states and so many, or something really cool. She travels a lot.
I do travel a lot. So sorry.
That's all right.
Andy and I enjoy traveling, and so that was something I didn't want to stop doing. And, you always talk about these bucket list items that you want to check off. And I thought, you know what? Like, I realize now that life is not given and that life is short. And so what are things that I could do to help live out Andy's dream? He's just watching from above. He's not there with me physically. And so I've been able to do some super cool things over the past few years. And so we were big sports fans. And so he always had talked about going to a Notre Dame football game, and we're from Indiana, and so I did a Notre Dame football game, and my stepdad and my sister went along on that journey. So I've always tried to bring people along on the journey with me, because it's more exciting and more fun and more special when you can do it with other people.
Enjoy it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we're both from Indiana, but we had never done the Indy 500, so I was able to do the Indy 500.
Nice.
I'm a big Chiefs fan, so I did the Super Bowl, the one they lost in Tampa, but still, that's why I can never go back to another Super Bowl, because when I go, they lose. When I don't go, they win. So I will forego the experience and let them keep winning. But he's a big North Carolina basketball fan, and North Carolina and Duke is just like the ultimate game. So I'm like, I'm going. So I went a couple of years ago and saw North Carolina and Duke, and just different things like that. I sat front row at a North Carolina basketball game when they were here in Portland. And so just, trying to take some of those trips and those experiences and just live it out and bring other people along on the journey with me, I think is important, because I don't want to, we're not made to do things alone, and we're not made to have, not have relationships. And so God's blessed me, and I've been able to bless other people along the way as well.
That's amazing. Wow, what a story.
A huge tip for all of our listeners. Bring people along on the journey with you. Everyone's like, let me know what I can do for you. Well, here's something specific. You can tell them, hey, let's go here. Let's do this. Let's, and I love how you continue to live life. It's so interesting. You can meet people with very similar stories, like both widowed, but they can be opposite ends of how they're reacting to it. You know, they can either choose to let it take over, and it's all they think of, and I'm the victim, and poor me, and all of this, which we could all be there for a minute, but then we got to get out of it and move forward. And I've seen you completely be able to move forward and to not only survive but thrive, and then inspire other people, because of his ministry, your ministry with him. I'm sure there's lots of people who have watched you, and they have seen how you have like risen in this. And the biggest difference I see is your relationship with Jesus. Like if I look at like what makes these different widows different, you know, because we used to be in these groups and see all these people totally depressed all the time, and like a lot of them didn't have Jesus. Like that would be the biggest one. But it's not just that, it's like then what you do with your time, you know, the healing steps that you take, and the things that you do, and the mindset that you have. Like, I didn't choose this, I would never choose this, but I'm gonna make the best of it. Like,
it's also a huge testimony.
I'm gonna do this. Go ahead.
It's also a huge testimony to non-believers.
True.
That, like we always say on this podcast, I don't know if you've heard us say, Maria, but we say like everybody's watching. The people are watching you, especially the non-believers, and they're gonna look at you and say, "Does she really believe what she says she believes?" Because if she does, she should be at peace with this. She should be okay. If her husband's really in paradise, if she really believes that, there should be something that shows that, and that's awesome that we all have this opportunity to be a testimony to non-believers about the healing power of God, and I think that's awesome. And just wanted to go back real quick to yes, I totally agree. Like, do things with other people, because so I love golf. Like, I love golfing. It's like a passion. I just love golfing. It's so peaceful being out there. It's so fun. And one time I was going to go golfing, and my friend, like at the last minute, like canceled on me. And I was like, you know what? I'm still going to go. And I paid for 18 holes. I went out there. After like the third or fourth hole, I'm like, this is lame. I'm leaving. And I left because it's like there's nobody to share the experience with. And so that speaks volumes to a lot of. So I agree. Like if you're doing something, like do it with somebody. It'll make it that much better. But you know, some people aren't. You know, some people want to travel the world by themselves. Yeah. That's cool too. But if you're not that kind of person, like I'm not, I really enjoy. There's been so many times I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a fire in my backyard tonight, and then I light it, and I'm like, this isn't as cool as I thought it was gonna be, because you're not sitting around enjoying it with somebody, you know. So. Anyways, yeah. So I think, wow, what a testimony. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. And I think going along with what you're saying, that the enemy likes to isolate. He can get us alone and get us to feel sorry for ourselves. Like that's when our lives are going to go downhill. And so it's so important to be part of community and to go to church. Not just, I've heard people say, well, I just watch online. But where's the community? Like, you got to get that community around you to support you and all of that stuff. So
it was funny, the day that Andy went missing, my mom actually flew out here, and within 24 hours, she said to me, Maria, I'm okay if you continue to live here. And my thought was, well, thank you. I'm 39. I don't need my mom's permission to continue to live here. But it goes to show that she saw the support that the community would give me. You know, the school district had delivered flowers to my house. The police department had delivered flowers to my house. And just it made me feel good knowing that my mom saw the support and that she was fine with me continuing to live here, even though I don't have any family or, you know, children or anything like that, that the support in the community was here for me.
And I want to speak to the people listening who might say, I don't have a community. It's never too late to start. You know, get involved in your church. Try to find other widows in your area. If there's not a group, because people are like, I wish we had a group. Start one. Like, that's what we did. We just started it, invited people, and then they know people, and it kind of spreads. But get involved with community. That is so huge, I believe, to your healing. You know, I think about all the friends that helped me get through this, all the widows I met, and just having that camaraderie. There is something about, like, all of us widowed women the other night. There's, like, this instant, like, bond that you have. And widowers as well. Like, you just have that unfortunate thing in common. And so I want to encourage everybody that it's not too late. If you don't have a community, find one.
Yeah, you know, so I have my church community, but I'm not just called to minister to people inside the walls of the church. And so I wanted to find a group outside the walls of the church to connect with. And so about a year after Andy had died, a lady had posted on Facebook, a local Facebook group, hey, I'm looking for 11 other ladies who want to play in a bunco group. And I thought, what a great way to connect with people outside the walls of the church.
That's good.
And after the first night, I thought, oh my gosh, these are going to be some of my lifelong friends, because we
Aw.
just really connected. And so we now have been doing the group for probably 2.5 years, and it has just been a great group of community who, if someone's sick, will take a meal to them.
Wow.
And it has become that. And then come to find out, there was a lady who actually went to my church, and so that was in the group. But it doesn't have to be in a church if you're not in a
True.
faith community. It can
Yeah.
be another type of support system, and you can absolutely create it yourself.
That's awesome advice. I love
Yeah,
that.
that's great.
So good. It is so important to have that. And this is, I just want to share this. It was so cute. There's these two ladies who came the other night. One is 78 and one is 77. And they were roommates at the retreat, and they hadn't seen each other since then. And they were like hugging and taking pictures and like roommates. It was the cutest thing.
Yes.
Like, you're also never too old.
No.
You know, at the retreat, our youngest person was 29 and our oldest was 78. And we got along great, you know. So
Were you
it's
the
just-
29-year-old?
Yes, I was. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay,
You
just
look
checking.
like it.
I was a 29-year-old. So it's a joke we always say on the podcast that I'm 29, even though Mark and I are the same age. Actually, I'm a few months older, but so it's all good. So do you have any other questions, Mark, or Maria? Do you have anything?
No, I'm just really grateful
Yeah.
that you came on. That was a great story.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having this outlet for people like me to be able to share my story and to continue to keep Andy's legacy alive. And then also for people, behind the scenes that are watching, like you said, people are watching. My mom tells me all the time, oh, so-and-so saw your post on Facebook and they just love following your journey, and they may never like it or
Right.
comment, but people are watching.
True.
And so it's thank you for having this,
Oh, you're
because people
welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
are definitely,
And
this is for the good.
I wanted to share something with you that I actually just shared with Tina as she was our most recent guest, that it's crazy to think there are people out there right now that are happily married. They're currently happily married. But several years from now, they're going to find this podcast,
Yeah.
and your story is going to help them. It's out there now, well, not now as we're recording, but as it launches. But yes, but I was telling Tina that I was like, how neat to think about that. There's people that are just going on vacations right now, doing life together. They just had a kid, whatever. They are going to see tragedy, and they just don't know it. Those people are out there, and there's several born every day, unfortunately, so to speak, into this unfortunate club. But it's just crazy to think that several years from now, there's going to be somebody who needed your story, needed to learn about Andy. And so I think that's really powerful. We live in a very interesting day and age.
Yeah, totally different than, we were talking about this last time, about how back in the day, so side note, reading this book from 1957 called How to Be a Successful Widow. And it's written by a man, and how they it was hard to meet somebody. And, if you wanted to get married again. And we were just saying, we're thankful for technology, for all these different reasons. But anyways, kind of side note too, I listened to this podcast the other day, and he was talking about prayer transcends all time. Like, when you pray, it goes back to the beginning of history and back to into the future. It's kind of like blowing my
Oh,
mind.
interesting.
But just how it's the same like that, but also this podcast. I mean, it's not as powerful as prayer, but you know what I'm saying? Like, people, we got an email from a lady the other day saying, I'm at the beginning, but I'm binge listening, so I know you from 3 years ago. And it's like, wow, it's just so cool. So the point is, yes, your story is going to live on because these podcasts stay here and people find them. And it's just, we just put ourselves out there and then let God do the work. Okay,
Absolutely.
God put this in the hands of the people who are supposed to hear it. And I believe the people who are supposed to hear Andy's story, your story, are going to hear it. And it's so exciting. So thank you so much. So
Yeah,
Mark,
thank
would
you.
you like to pray us out?
Sure.
All right.
Lord, thank you so much for Maria's courage to come on here and share her story. Thank you for the marriage of her and Andy, and the resilience that you've blessed her with to carry on forward and keep living a life of faith. We thank you for that. We thank you for all the blessings and the people that you've surrounded her with. We pray that you would continue to look out for her, take care of her, and continue that the community would continue having her in their heart to lift her up and help her when needed. And we just thank you for this ministry, Lord, and what you've done with it. It's yours. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, if you like this podcast, give it a little bing, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen. Side note, forgot to tell you, I just saw there's a new review of someone who said, yeah, it came out on Sunday. I just saw it as someone who said they lost their husband 6 months ago and how this podcast has helped them. So thank you for leaving that review. We do appreciate every review. If you want to have your voice featured, you can go to the link for SpeakPipe, where you can leave us a little review that we will play when the episode starts. And if you want to be a guest, we have a link to that. Please join our Widow Too Soon community. I can feel the difference. Like, so we have our Widow Too Soon page, which is more like only we can post and has a lot of people. And then we have the community we started a couple weeks ago. And it's like more action than the other one because everyone's allowed to post. And I actually do go through and make sure they are widowed. And like, I don't make them, like some groups make you send a death certificate. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to their page and I'm like looking like it's valid. And we have somebody who posted today, they lost their wife yesterday. And how great that we can be there and we can pray for this person and we can like gather around them. And so please join our Widow Too Soon community page. There's a link below, and you just have to wait just a little bit for me to approve it, and that's for the safety of everybody in there because we have lots of scammers on the other one. So we want to keep this a safe place, and it's private. So the other one is public. If you like post something, everybody in the world can see it. This is private, just the people in the group. So please join that if you can. And I think that's all we got for today. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. God bless.